I never expected to confront a millionaire at my door, believing he was a burglar. The rain lashed against the window like 1,000 hands trying to break in. It was a night like no other, dark and tumultuous, with shadows crawling across the walls. My heart raced as I crept toward the front door, an anxious knot tightening in my chest. I could barely breathe. What if it was a thief? What if it was something worse? When I swung the door open, the storm slowed for just a breath. There he stood, a man in an expensive suit, his hair slicked back, and his piercing blue eyes gleamed with a mix of desperation and resolve. He was drenched, breaths mingling with the cold air. And in that moment, I recoiled, convinced he was a burglar. The opulence around him felt like a jagged knife against my own poverty-stricken life. "Please, you have to listen to me," he pleaded, turning his palms upward, revealing a glittering diamond ring that caught the flickering porch light. It was the kind of ring a bride would wear, sparkling with stories untold. I took a step back, my pulse hammering. Who was this man? Moments slipped away like sand in an hourglass. My mind raced through a haze of thoughts about my mother's hospital bills, my father's drinking, and the crumbling house that echoed silence most days. This was not the life I dreamed of. This man was a suspicious anomaly, out of place in my struggling world. "Why are you here?" I finally breathed, my voice shaky. He inhaled deeply, his expression shifting from urgency to something softer, almost vulnerable. "I have something that belongs to you." His words hung in the air, electrifying everything around us. "What could you possibly have for me?" I shot back, anger flaring. I should have slammed the door. Instead, something about his eyes stopped me. He glanced over his shoulder nervously, making my instincts scream. I gulped. There was an intensity radiating from him, like a storm brewing, and it had nothing to do with the weather. The way he held himself, the confidence coupled with fear, it was unsettling. "I'm your brother," he confessed, just above a whisper. A heartbeat passed, then another. I felt the floor beneath me shift. My breath caught, and for a split second, the world went silent. Brotherhood? With a man dressed like a king? It couldn't be real. My mind reeled with confusion, a maelstrom of questions spinning in every direction. Everyone in my family had seemingly vanished from my life. No one mentioned a brother. No one ever told me why. I shook my head, struggling to unearth the past buried deep within the walls of my memories. "You're lying!" I shouted, heart racing, blood pounding. My voice echoed back at me, mingling with the roar of the storm outside. Just as I began to close the door, he shouted louder, "Wait! I have proof." He fished out a crumpled piece of paper, offering it like a lifeline. My hands trembled, reaching for it tentatively, fear and curiosity battling within me. What if he was telling the truth? What if this meant everything? Did I really want to open this door to a man who could unravel my world? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The storm raged louder, nearly drowning out the cacophony of emotions that waged war within me. My hand hovered above the paper, pulse racing, uncertainty clawing at my throat. Could he truly be telling the truth? And if so, why now? Why had he come back into my life, drenched and desperate, when I had spent my entire existence unfurling layers of silence about my family? Please, his voice was steady, but the pleading in his eyes betrayed his calm demeanor. Just look at it. Against my better judgment, I took the paper from his outstretched hand, the slick surface of it feeling alien. My eyes darted over the words, scanning for any hint of deceit, any reason to throw him out. And there, in the midst of unrecognized forms and unfamiliar names, my breath caught again a name I had longed to hear. It was my mother's name, followed by a string of numbers, certifications, the kind heralded by passing years I'd never known. My heart twisted in what felt like devotion and betrayal all at once. What is this? I stammered, the air constricting around me. It's proof, he reassured, almost too intently. Proof that we share the same blood. I only learned of my existence a few months ago. After a long search, I found your name on the papers left behind by our mother. Understanding flooded the void inside me, blended with an aching sense of loss. And she never mentioned me? I questioned, a sharp edge in my voice. He lowered his gaze, shame washing over his features. She didn't even remember. The family ours was lost to her after the accident. I promise you, I'm here to fix this. Fix this. The words echoed ominously in my mind. What could he fix? Nothing could restore the years that had eroded like sand. The walls we had built with pain would not easily crumble. Those wounds were raw and unfinished. Then, as if recognizing the flicker of hope and skepticism within, he added, I can help you. Financially, if that's what you need. I don't want anything from you but the chance to know you, to be a part of your life. Anger bubbled up again, threatening to drown out the flicker of hope. And what do I want with a millionaire brother? What do you know about struggle? He recoiled as if my words had struck him. More than you think. His voice dropped, raw with emotion. I didn't choose my family. I grew up with unrelenting pressure, expectations forcing me to become something I never wanted. I'm not just a suit and a diamond ring, I'm a man who lost his way, not knowing where he fit into this world. And believe me, I am still struggling. Through the monsoon of my emotions, his vulnerability reached me, a vein of kindness amid suffocating storm clouds. It was the first glimmer of understanding I had felt in a long time. I just thought I could give you something, he said softly, his eyes glistening. You deserve more than this, more than a crumbling house and endless bills. You deserve to know what could have been. You deserve to have someone care for you. His words ignited something deep within, the tangle of pain and hope becoming an almost tangible force. I hesitated, torn between the scars he had unearthed and the possibility of a bond, a shared life that could redefine everything I had known, but just as I began to consider his offer, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, flickering over his face, and the air thickened with an unspoken rawness. There was something else swirling just under the surface, something urgent and unsaid. Before I could voice my thoughts, the ground shook with a sonorous crash of thunder. Out of instinct, I found myself reaching for the doorframe, and at that same moment, so did he, our hands trembling as we both searched for stability, both grasping the weight of our fears and hopes. And suddenly, his expression morphed into something darker, lines of worry creased his otherwise confident facade. We need to get inside, he urged, looking over his shoulder with alarm. There's something you don't know. The ring of his phone broke through the tension, vibrating violently against his side. A moment's hesitation hung in the air as he answered, the worry etched deeper into his brow. No, I don't understand. I thought. His voice trailed off, leaving a chasm of silence between us. I could hardly breathe, sensing that whatever he was hearing was irrevocable. Wait, what do you mean, they found him? His face paled. No, not now. I watched as his resilience faltered, the brother I had just begun to grapple with slipping away like mist through my fingers. My heart thudded, fear entwining with an inexplicable bond one had been so skeptical about moments ago. Who? I whispered, and in that instant, I realized there was a darker thread woven into this storm, a shadow lurking just beyond the edges of an untold truth. The heavy weight of an impending revelation loomed on the horizon, and for the first time, I felt the fragile architecture of our connection tremble, possibly on the verge of collapse. The rain pounded against the rooftop like a drumroll, each drop matching the erratic beat of my heart. I stood frozen, watching as his face twisted with fear, the underlying tension suddenly snapping into focus. My biological brother, who had just introduced himself into my life, was unraveling before me, and I felt the urgency pulse around us like an electric current. What do you mean they found him? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper as I took a cautious step closer. His distant gaze shifted toward me, the vibrant storm outside contrasting sharply with the dull dread filling the space between us. That he looked as if he had aged 10 years in mere seconds, panic fighting against his fading composure. It's about my father. He's been missing for years. What do you mean missing? I pressed, though a sense of apprehension gnawed at my insides. How does this involve us? Our family was split after the accident. I thought we were just lost. But he's been out there, and now they've found him. They said he wasn't just missing, he was connected to something dangerous. His words tumbled out, each syllable carrying a weight that darkened the room. Dread coiled around my heart, squeezing it tighter with every second that passed. Dangerous? I echoed, the word tasting foreign on my tongue. Is that why you came to me now? Is that why you wanted to reconnect? He ran a hand through his hair, his breath quickening. No. I swear. I didn't know. I just wanted to reach out. I was searching for any scrap of family, and when I found you, I thought it would be healing for both of us. But now his voice broke, and I could see the shadows of guilt darkening his features. The door creaked ominously behind me, gusts of wind forcing their way inside as if urging me to escape. You need to leave. You need to go back to your life, I said, the words escaping my lips with more urgency than I wanted. I can't be part of this. I can't go back, he insisted, stepping forward, desperation cracking through his tone. Not now. You don't understand the implications of this. We're at the center of something I never intended to drag you into. The moment I found out I had a sister, a family, I just wanted to protect you. My mind spun with a whirlpool of emotions. Desirable vulnerability twisted into fear, and I felt my heart racing out of control. Yet amidst all the turmoil, flickers of understanding began to illuminate the corners of my conflicted heart. He was just like me, a product of chaos and loss, fumbling at the edges of an unfamiliar connection. But the danger that threatened to envelop us felt palpable, heavy with the promise of unseen consequences. What if your father is dangerous? What if he is involved in something even worse? Then I'll make sure you're safe, he vowed, his voice hardening with determination. I won't let anything happen to you. We can face this together. I won't let the past repeat itself. I wanted to believe him, wanted to lean into that glimmer of hope he offered. But the restrictions of my reality nipped at my heels, urging me toward safety, away from the chaos that threatened to drag me under. As the storm intensified outside, a deafening clap of thunder echoed through the air, reverberating through my bones, a reminder of the turmoil both inside me and in the world beyond. In a desperate attempt to ground myself, I closed the space between us, feeling the warmth radiate off him amidst the tempest's chill. Then what do we do? I asked, uncertainty lacing my voice. He took a breath, swallowing down whatever fears he held and searching my eyes as if trying to establish an unbreakable bond. We need to find out what's really going on. I can't do this without you. We need to know why he's come back and what it all means. Just as I made my decision to stand by him as fear was slowly wrested by determination, his phone rang again, this time more insistently. With a glance, the color drained from his face, the call sounded utterly urgent. He answered, his voice trembling slightly as he spoke into the receiver. Yes. I'm here. No, I can't stay away. Not when she's involved. My breath hitched as I felt the gravity of his words, realization creeping in that whatever tangled mess awaited us wasn't merely an echo from the past, rather, it was an immediate threat. What did they say? I whispered, watching as he sank against the wall, the weight of a swirling storm in his eyes. They're in trouble. They need us. A chill spread through the room, the intensity of his gaze locking me into an unyielding reality. What do you mean, us? Before he could respond, a loud crash echoed outside, causing us both to jump, and the lights flickered ominously. My heart raced in sync with the storm that roiled outside. And then, just as I tried to steel my resolve, the lights went out completely, plunging us into darkness. The darkness was thick and all-consuming, suffocating any sense of safety I had clung to. In that moment, as thunder shook the very foundations of our connection, one thought surfaced clearly in the chaos: the world around us had changed irrevocably. With newfound resolve and uncertainty intertwining like veins, I took a deep breath, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. We would have to face both the hidden shadows of our past and the looming threats of our future, together. But just as I turned to face him again, the screech of tires erupted outside, and a sharp knock echoed against the door, sudden, demanding, insistent, and full of promise for the unknown. "Who is that?" I asked, dread pooling anew in the pit of my stomach as we exchanged uncertain glances. "I don't know," he replied, but the urgency in his voice indicated he shared my fears. Just as I steeled myself for whatever danger lay beyond, the door burst open, revealing a silhouette framed by lightning, a figure that, in that moment, felt both familiar and utterly terrifying. As dread washed over me, everything within me tensed, and I realized that our reluctant alliance had just faced its own uncharted path, where pieces were shifting mercilessly. There would be no simply turning back now. The moment the door swung open, my heart raced. The outline of the man was obscured by the flashing lightning, casting jagged shadows across the room. He stepped forward, his features coming into focus: a chiseled jaw, dark hair slicked back, and piercing blue eyes that seemed to cut through the darkness. Instinctively, I took a step back, colliding with the wall behind me as I tried to assess the situation. "Who are you?" my brother demanded, his tone fierce yet slightly tremulous, as if he were trying to mask his own growing concern. The man took a breath, standing tall and confident in the dimness of our living room. "I'm here to help. My name is Victor." "Help?" I countered, indignation flaring in my voice. "Help with what? You crashed through our door like some sort of vigilante." "I wouldn't have come like this if I had another option," Victor said, his gaze shifting between us with intensity. "Your family is in grave danger. Your father has made enemies, and now those enemies are coming for you both." The panic clawed at my insides. "What do you know about our father?" I asked, the vulnerability in my voice revealing the cracks in my composure. "There's a lot we need to discuss, and not much time," he replied, his urgency palpable amidst the storm's continued fury. "You need to trust me. There are people watching, and if they find out you're connected to him, they won't hesitate to come for you." "Why should we trust you?" My brother's voice held a mix of suspicion and defensiveness as he stepped slightly ahead of me, creating a barrier. Victor opened his hands in a gesture of sincerity. "Because you don't have a choice. I've been tracking this for months, your father's disappearance, and now I've found traces. You're closer to the truth than you realize." "But how do we know you're not one of them? One of his enemies?" I felt my voice tremble, the fear rising torrents in my throat. "I'm not," he insisted, his intense gaze boring into mine. "I was a partner of his before everything fell apart. What you don't understand is that your father had a plan. He was trying to protect you both from the fallout of his decisions. I need your help to finish what he started." "What plan? What decisions?" My brother stepped forward, his brow furrowed with anger and confusion. "Enough questions. I can tell you everything, but we have to move. Now." Just as the urgency in his voice penetrated my fear, another bolt of lightning struck, illuminating the room and revealing lines of worry etched across Victor's handsome features. But as the light faded, I noticed something flickering, just behind him, a shadow that slipped between spaces, creeping ever so closer. With a sudden thud, another noise echoed outside, and I turned my head toward the window. I caught a glimpse of two figures huddled beneath the awning of a nearby street lamp, their faces hidden but their intent unmistakable. The storm roared, drowning out my rising panic, but one thought burned brightly in the turmoil of my mind: we were being hunted. "Please," I pleaded, my voice cracking. "We can't stay here." "I know. Victor nodded, his eyes darting to the darkened window, now becoming illuminated by another flash. Follow me. We can take my car. It's not safe to stay here. Not anymore. My brother hesitated, glancing between me and Victor, weighing the options. I could see his conflict warring within him. There was a flicker of doubt, but the fire of urgency demanded we choose. What about our things? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. There's no time. Victor insisted, taking a step closer, his resolve firm. They're already here. Before I could respond, I felt Victor grasp my arm, and in that moment, an unexpected warmth radiated between us, either trust or trepidation, I couldn't tell which. But as he yanked me back toward the door and motioned for my brother to follow, I felt a new wave of fear wash over me. With the storm's power peaking, the wind howled, and just as we stepped into the night, an oppressive figure burst into our living room, silhouetted by the howling tempest outside, blocking our only pathway to safety. It was the familiar silhouette, one I couldn't quite make out but felt an indescribable connection to a connection that left a cold shiver running down my spine. And as our eyes met, the recognition ignited within me. I had seen that face in fleeting dreams that echoed in the early hours of dawn, a face shrouded in whispers from my past. Stop! Victor shouted, pushing me slightly behind him as he stood protectively in front, his breath heaving with urgency. The tension in the air intermingled with the rumble of thunder, and I felt time fracture as the heavy weight of destiny descended upon our fragile moment, but before any words could be exchanged, a single thought crashed violently into my mind. Whoever stood in front of us wasn't merely a connection to a fractured past but the key to a truth I had unknowingly been running from. And with this revelation, I recognized the chilling bonds of our tangled fates were far from severed. The storm raged on outside, punctuating the silence that enveloped us the moment I recognized the figure standing in the doorway. With the storm's fury providing an ominous backdrop, a haunting familiarity washed over me. I blinked, trying to push aside the unsettling feeling that this person, this chilling manifestation of my previous dreams, could hold more secrets than I could bear. Thomas? My voice trembled, barely above a whisper now. The name felt like a stone dropped into a deep chasm, sending ripples through my shaky composure. Victor's protective posture yielded just slightly, his grip on my arm tightening as if sensing the tremors of recognition. Do you know him? He asked, his eyes darting between us. My heart raced with confusion and a flicker of hope. Thomas, the boy I had known ages ago, the one who had disappeared as abruptly as he entered my life. Our childhood friendship had been innocent, fleeting like summer rain, yet its ghost lingered in my memories, woven with laughter and an unspoken promise. Do you have any idea what this means? What you've done? Thomas's voice, though tinged with urgency, betrayed a hint of regret. His dark eyes were wide with a mix of despair and determination. You need to listen to me. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help. Victor stepped forward, challenging the intensity of Thomas's presence. You're involved in this too, aren't you? Why should we trust you over a known ally? My heart sank at Victor's words, betraying the flicker of loyalty I felt towards Thomas, a loyalty forged in the innocence of shared childhood, now tested by the weight of our current reality. Wait, I said, raising a hand between them, maybe he's right. Maybe our paths have crossed for a reason we don't yet know. There was a flicker of understanding in Thomas's gaze, a silent acknowledgement that everything he had lost had somehow led him back to me. I don't have time to explain everything, he said, dread shadowing his features, but you have to come with me. They're coming for you, and it isn't safe here. Who is coming? The words spilled from my brother's lips, tinged with a protective ferocity that mirrored the storm outside. They're hunting anyone connected to your father's dealings. I was drawn back into this nightmare when I learned about his disappearance. I didn't want to believe you were in danger too. There was a haunting vulnerability in Thomas's voice, and for a second, it felt as if we were back in the carefree moment of our childhood. Victor remained tense, unwilling to lower his guard. We're not going anywhere until we know everything, he insisted, his blue eyes narrowing with suspicion. Lightning illuminated Thomas's face, casting sharp shadows that deepened the urgency in his expression. You don't understand. They won't hesitate to kill anyone who knows too much. We need to move now. Trust me, there are places we can hide, people I can connect us with. The air crackled with uncertainty as the storm raged on, mirroring the tempest brewing inside me. A part of me wanted to grasp onto the distant affection I once felt for Thomas, but I couldn't ignore the reality we faced. He had disappeared from my life when I needed him the most, just like my father had, leaving only echoes of what had once been. What about our mother? I blurted, the sudden thought slashing through my tangled feelings. We can't just leave her. Thomas's expression turned grave. I'm not sure. But we can't risk bringing danger to her door. She is safer not knowing. You need to trust me, this is a matter of life and death. That phrase echoed ominously in my mind as I glanced at my brother. Nothing felt certain anymore, and the thought of leaving everything we knew behind sent shivers racing down my spine. Yet, I also felt the pressing weight of fate pushing us towards an unknown future, one I couldn't risk losing. Another crash of thunder reverberated through the house, and I looked back at the doorway where the shadow loomed, an invisible force halting our escape. We don't have time. Victor insisted, his voice rising above the chaos. We have to make a choice. Now. Okay, I whispered, a resolve slowly coalescing within me, let us go. But we have to find my mother as soon as we can. We owe her that much. Fine. Victor's word was terse, but I sensed the shift in his tone, a grudging acceptance of a deeper bond than he could afford. He stepped aside, allowing Thomas the space to usher us through the doorway. As we stepped into the storm, the wind lashing at our faces, I felt the burden of our choices pressing heavily on my shoulders. Thunder rolled like a drumbeat behind us, marking the beginning of an unexpected journey that no one could have predicted. But just as we turned the corner, determined to escape whatever darkness pursued us, a low rumble of a car engine interrupted the tempest. I glanced back, a cold dread creeping up my spine, and my heart plummeted further than I ever thought possible. A black SUV pulled to the curb a few houses down, and a flood of familiar faces emerged from the shadows, haunted by secrets and purpose. They were the last people I expected to see, and my heart raced as panic consumed my thoughts. Run! I shouted, terror flashing through me as I grabbed my brother's hand, but the realization of who they were paralyzed me momentarily, leaving me teetering on the edge of a truth I never wanted to confront. They had come for us, and the weight of our choices was just beginning to settle heavily across our shoulders, testing the bonds of love and trust we barely understood. The rain pelted us mercilessly as we sprinted down the street, my breath hitching with every frantic step. I could feel Victor's grip tightening on my hand, grounding me amidst the storm's chaos while my heart raced with the fear of what that SUV represented. Those faces, hauntingly familiar but cloaked in shadows, were etched into my memory as symbols of everything I wanted to escape. Who are they? Victor gasped, glancing over his shoulder with wide eyes filled with concern. People from my father's past, I managed between gasps, dread pooling in my stomach. They shouldn't be here. They're dangerous. Thomas, now leading the way, glanced back at us with a determination that bordered on desperation. Stay close. If they come for you, we need to get to safety. We ducked into an alley, puddles splashing as we frantically weaved through the darkness. The storm roared above us, a cacophony that drowned out the sound of footsteps behind us, at least for a moment. I could feel the whispered warnings in my mind, recollections of stories my mother had told me about my father's dealings. Those faces were a testament to the life I had tried to distance myself from, yet here they were, binding me to the past I thought I had escaped. As we rushed deeper into the alley, the downpour intensified, turning the world into a swirling chaos of water and dark shapes. A flicker of hope ignited within me when I spotted a small, dimly lit storefront at the alley's end. There! I shouted, pointing toward the flickering neon sign that barely cut through the storm. We can't just run inside without a plan. Victor protested, pulling me back slightly. There was fire in his blue eyes, as if he were fighting against an instinct to protect me. Plan. I replied, nearly screaming over the rain. We'll come up with a plan once we're inside. We need shelter. Reluctantly, he nodded, and together we dashed toward the doorway. Thomas was a step ahead, already grasping the door handle when the unmistakable sound of approaching footsteps sliced through the storm's fury. My pulse quickened at the realization that they were closing in. The door swung open with a squeak, pulling us into the dim interior of the shop. I caught my breath as we tumbled inside, the warmth contrasting sharply with the cool dampness outside. The area was cluttered with old antiques, the faint glow of a single lamp casting elongated shadows that danced across the room. "Stay quiet," Thomas whispered, his dark eyes scanning the room. We pressed ourselves against the back wall, watching as raindrops slid down the fogged windowpanes like tears, mirroring our own turmoil. Outside, the voices of those who had come for us grew louder, demanding, urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but the tension was palpable, pulsating through the air like an electric current. "Do you think they'll find us?" Victor whispered, his voice edged with fear. Before I could reply, a heavy thud against the door startled us. My heart leapt, the room shrinking around me as if closing in under the weight of our vulnerability. "Shoo! They might hear you," I cautioned, my thoughts racing. I could feel the fear clawing at my insides, a visceral reminder of how quickly everything had unraveled. Thomas waved a hand toward the back of the shop, indicating an exit. "We can escape through the storage room. Maybe we can lose them in the storm." As we quietly edged toward the back, a small noise caught my ear, a creaking floorboard, the unmistakable sound of caution amid a desperate search. Through the haze of my panic, I spotted a figure, an old woman, frail yet fierce, emerging from a hidden section of the shop. Her silver hair glowed dimly under the lamplight, and she stared at us with a mixture of curiosity and alarm. "Who are you?" she croaked, her voice sharp despite her frail appearance. "Please," Thomas insisted, "let us hide. We're in danger." A flicker of empathy softened her gaze, and something about her presence brought me a small measure of hope. "You can hide, but you must be quiet. They'll stop at nothing to find you." She gestured for us to follow her into a cramped room filled with dust and shadows. As we crept inside, I felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. The pounding against the door increased, and the sounds of shouting filled the small shop. The fear in my heart ignited anew, conflicting with the small spark of gratitude I felt toward the old woman who had opened her door to us. "Stay hidden," she said as she quietly closed the door behind us, leaving us cloaked in darkness. The room offered little comfort as we pressed ourselves into corners, desperate to be unseen. I could hear the conversation outside morphing into chaos, voices rising with anger and urgency. It was unsettling, a reminder of how quickly life could spiral into turmoil, but then, amid the palpable tension, a sound echoed through the stillness of breaking glass, followed by shouts. The room vibrated with raw fear. I looked at Thomas, his eyes wide with an understanding that we might be out of time. Just then, there was a sudden explosion of sound as the door was forced open, and shadows flooded into the room. My heart raced as I braced for the worst, feeling every ounce of hope drain away, replaced by the suffocating grip of uncertainty, and then I heard a voice, not one of the intruders, but familiar, tangled with disbelief and longing. "Why can't you just leave us alone?" The world tilted as an overwhelming wave of realization crashed over me. Everything I thought I understood was suddenly thrown into chaos. It was a voice I hadn't heard in years, the one I had yearned for and feared in equal measure. Just before the darkness swallowed us whole, I saw the face of a million whispered secrets, the face I had never truly expected to confront. The room spun as recognition hit me like a tidal wave, crashing over the remnants of my carefully constructed barriers. I buried my face in my hands, my pulse hammering in my ears as the weight of the moment suffocated me. It was impossible, I had convinced myself this would never happen. And yet, here he stood, my father, a specter from a past I had fought tooth and nail to escape. "Isabella?" he breathed, his voice thick with emotion as it wove through the startled silence. I couldn't look at him. The mere sound of my name on his lips ignited a torrent of memories of warmth, laughter, and love, intertwined with the betrayals that had shattered my childhood. Get away from her! Thomas erupted, stepping protectively in front of me, the old woman's warning now echoing through my head. Fear and anger stirred inside me. Why had he come? Did he have any idea of the fear coursing through my veins, tangled with the desperate longing to be free from his grasp? Thomas, stop! I finally managed, my voice like a fractured whisper. I could feel Victor shift beside me, his presence a quiet reminder that I was not alone. Let him speak. Isabella, he repeated, stepping closer, the storm raging outside now drowned out by the drum of my racing heart. I didn't know where else to find you. I heard about the people after you, that they might be looking for you. His voice cracked under the weight of unspoken regret, and behind the tenor of panic, I could hear a plea. For a moment, the world outside faded into insignificance as I struggled with the whirlwind of emotions threatening to engulf me. You shouldn't have come, I choked out, the bitterness tasting like ash on my tongue. You have no idea what you've set in motion. I came to protect you, he implored, his eyes cutting through the layers of anger I had built up over the years. I thought I was keeping you safe by staying away. Bitter laughter escaped me before I could suppress it. Safe? Is that what you call it? Abandoning me while you keep your secrets? Leaving me to face this life alone? I felt Victor's reassuring hand on my shoulder, grounding me, yet I was adrift in a sea of confusion and anguish. The deep lines on my father's face deepened with pain as if every word I spoke was a knife driven into his heart. I was wrong. I see that now. But I have connections, resources. I can help you, he said, his desperation evident in the intensity of his gaze. No. I felt myself shaking, the very thought of accepting help from the one who had shattered my world. You think you can just waltz in here and act like you care? You left, and that's not something that can be undone, I cried, my voice breaking under the weight of years filled with hurt. The confrontation hung in the air like a suffocating fog, thickening with every breath. Outside, the storm continued to rage, mirroring the tempest within me. The old woman watched, her face a mask of concern and sympathy, but I was too lost in my tumult to notice. What happened to you, Isabella? My father finally asked, his voice softer now, tinged with something deeper regret, guilt, a plea for understanding that I wasn't ready to give. I survived, I replied, feeling the anger rising within me again. Even without your help. I built my life after you abandoned us. I glanced at Victor, who stood resolute by my side, his unwavering presence a balm for my frayed spirit. These people are after me because of you. Everything that I wanted to escape. It's chasing me down now. I know. I'm so sorry, he said, the anguish in his voice palpable. But we need to leave, all of us. You're not safe here. They'll come for you, and I can protect you now. Please, just give me a chance to explain. Why should I trust you? I bit out. You threw me away like everyone else. They might not have the same blood, but it doesn't matter. You taught me that. For a brief moment, I caught a flicker of anguish in his eyes, a recognition of the chasm his actions had carved into our relationship. Because despite everything, I am still your father, he pleaded, his voice trembling. Let me prove that I've changed. I'll fight for you this time, I swear it. At that moment, the room echoed with another sound, a loud crash, pulling us from this charged exchange. The intruders were not far behind, the old woman's eyes widened in fear. There's no time. She hissed, her voice urgent, and I felt panic tighten its grip. They'll find you. We must leave now. I turned back to my father, uncertainty twisting in my gut. Could I trust him? The need to protect those I cared for wrestled with the rising tide of betrayal. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated from the front of the shop, and a figure fell through the threshold, silhouetted against the dim light. Quick, hide! The old woman shoved us into a corner, the shadows swallowing us as disorder erupted just outside our haven. My heart raced, each beat a deafening echo of dread and the overwhelming need for clarity. As I crouched there, torn between hope and fear, a haunting question loomed above all else: would I ever escape the past, or was I about to become a part of it again? The room darkened around me, and I felt my father's presence beside me, his fear mingling with mine, and somehow I could sense a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. But just when I thought I could navigate through the pain, a voice called out from the throng. "Isabella! We know you're in here." The voice was familiar, chilling me to the core. A face I had hoped never to see again crept into my mind, and I went cold with realization. The battle against my past was far from over. The shadows clung to us like a thick curtain as the world outside erupted with chaos. The shout reverberated in my mind, each syllable dragging a weight of recognition from the depths of my memory. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying the darkness would somehow swallow the truth. The voice was unmistakable: Leo, my once dearest friend turned bitter enemy. "Isabella! We know you're in here." His voice rang out again, sharper this time, a knife digging deeper into wounds I thought had begun to heal. The room around me shrank, the air thick with tension as the reality of my situation crashed over me in waves. "Please, don't say anything," I hissed, my heart fluttering wildly in my chest like a trapped bird. The urge to flee pulsed through me, but I forced myself into stillness. Thomas stood rigid, fists balled, an unspoken guardian against the inferno outside our sanctuary. Victor's grip on my shoulder tightened, a silent pledge that I was not alone. My father leaned in closer, desperation etched into every line of his face, his breath warm against my ear. "Isabella, whatever happens, don't let him get to you. You're stronger than this, remember." Memories of laughter and secret shared dreams began to clash with the ache of betrayal I felt the day Leo turned his back on me. I had devoted my heart and soul to that friendship, only to watch as it crumbled beneath the weight of ambition and greed. I felt the desperation rising within me, an impossible mixture of longing for the person he used to be and fear of who he had become. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps, heavy and purposeful, drawn closer. The weight of my past, heavier than I had anticipated, draped over my shoulders like an oppressive blanket. I needed to move. I needed to escape. But how? "Let us go out the back," I whispered urgently to Thomas and Victor, urgency igniting every word. Before I could push through the thin veil of shadows, a crash jolted through the shop. The door splintered, jerking open with a sudden violent force, and there he was, Leo, framed against the storm, a storm of his own in his eyes. "Isabella!" He called again, his voice rich with false concern, and I could scarcely breathe. "You can't hide from this. You owe me. You owe me everything." A tremor ran through me as panic began to cut through the fog of confusion. "I owe you nothing," I shot back, finding my voice amidst the chaos. "You took everything from me." "Oh, but I gave you a taste of the real world, didn't I?" He stepped into the shop, windswept and wild-eyed. "I opened doors for you, Isabella. Do you really think you can just walk away from me?" With him came a flood of memories, moments of friendship intertwined with ambition. The nights we spent dreaming together, the plans we made. But that was before the mask slipped, and I realized that beneath his charm lay a hunger for power that eclipsed any loyalty he had once vowed. "You don't get to play the victim now," I hissed, my voice stronger than I felt. "You ran with the worst of them, and I'll never let you do it again." He glared at me, a storm brewing beneath the calm facade. "You're naive if you think you can outrun this, Isabella. They will find you no matter where you run. You think he can help you?" He gestured to my father, who stood rigid beside me, his face a mask of fury mingled with sorrow. Their eyes locked, revealing an unspoken history, shadows of choices made long before my existence. "Isabella, trust me. We can make this right," Leo urged, desperation creeping into his voice. "You're playing a dangerous game by keeping him close. The moment you do, you put yourself at risk." I'd take that risk 1,000 times over, I spat out, my fear morphing into something sharper. You think you intimidate me? You're nothing but a coward hiding behind threats. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. Leo stepped closer, his demeanor darkening. Then I guess you're ready to face the consequences. That was when the world seemed to shatter around me. The crowd outside erupted further, voices blending into a cacophony of unrest. In the distance, I could hear the blare of sirens growing nearer. My heart pounded in my chest. We ran out of time. We have to leave now. Victor pulled me back, urgency shaping his tone. Together, my father whispered, and for a fleeting moment, I allowed a flicker of hope to cross my mind. Perhaps I could navigate this darkness with love and courage guiding me. As the shadows pulled closer, I grasped onto that flicker, using it to fuel my next move. Now, I urged, shoving past Leo, my past, our haunting history igniting a fire within. But just as I moved, a recollection sliced through my thoughts, one of the old woman's words, "They know your weaknesses." In that instant, I felt it, a sharp pain, like ice, biting through my side. I gasped, the reality of betrayal slapping me awake as I glanced down to see the glint of metal and the sudden warmth of crimson unfurling across my shirt. The last thing I heard before the world faded to black was a mix of screams and Leo's voice filled with triumph yet laced with something deeper, hauntingly familiar. "You're never getting away from me, Isabella. Not this time." Darkness enveloped me, a thick blanket that smothered all sound and sense. I drifted between consciousness and oblivion, my body heavy, as if it had been forged from stone. Somewhere deep within, I felt the warmth of blood pooling around me, and it sent tremors through the frail tether holding me to this world. "Isabella." The voice pierced through the haze, a haunting echo that clawed at the edges of my awareness. I wasn't entirely sure whether it was my father or Victor calling for me, their voices melding into one desperate plea. In my hazy mind, a flicker of hope ignited. Perhaps this was all a dream, a nightmare I could wake from, one where Leo didn't exist with his taunts and threats. But no dream could hold such agony. I felt their hands then, fearful yet searching, testing for signs of life. I wanted to respond, to assure them I was still here, but my tongue felt heavy, and my limbs refused to cooperate. Suddenly, piercing light flooded my vision as I began to stir, pulling me further from the abyss. Merriment and wails intermingled in the atmosphere, creating a surreal soundtrack of despair. Each breath became a struggle, each heartbeat a reminder of my vulnerability. "Stay with me, Isabella. Please," a voice insisted, stronger now. I forced my eyes to focus through the haze, landing on the blurred outline of my father, panic twisting his features. I wanted so deeply to reach out and assure him, to tell him that I was okay. But I wasn't okay. As the moment stretched into what felt like an eternity, the reality sank deeper. Leo's voice echoed in my mind, heavy with the weight of betrayal. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, plotting and scheming like the snake I had always known him to be. With a sudden jolt, I was pulled back into the present. A harsh gasp rattled my chest, awake as consciousness crashed over me like waves. "Dad? Victor?" I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank God." Victor's voice broke through the fog, relief palpable in his tone. He leaned in closer, worry etched deep into his brow. "You're safe now, Isabella. The paramedics are on their way." "Where is Leo?" I forced the words out, every syllable laced with an urgency born from fear. "Gone," my father said, his hands shaking slightly as he spoke. "He fled once he realized how serious it was. But we'll find him, you're not alone in this." Suddenly, my heart dropped. What did it matter if Leo was gone? His voice followed me like a shadow, and I could still feel him lurking just beyond the edge of my thoughts, more ominous than ever. "Will you stop him?" The question slipped from me unbidden. "Isabella, it's not that simple," Victor replied, his eyes downcast. And in that instant, a hard truth shattered my fragile hope. the battle was far from over. As if sensing the shift, the room grew heavier, the air crackling with the tension of unspoken words. My father squeezed my hand, his grip warm and steady. Listen to me. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. I promise I won't let him hurt you again. I know, I whispered, but a gnawing uncertainty settled deep in my gut. Promises were fragile, easily broken in the wake of chaos. I closed my eyes, conjuring a plan amidst the unfolding shadows. In the weeks before, I had broken bread with Leo. Now the very thought of him sent chills coursing through my marrow. His once bright eyes had turned as cold as steel, a harbinger of the monster he had become. Isabella, my father's voice cut through the haze of my thoughts, drawing my attention back. Don't you dare give in to fear. You are so much stronger than this. I feel so lost, I admitted, the weight of my emotions spilling over like a dam bursting. What if he comes back for me? Just as despair began to take root in my heart, Victor's fingers brushed mine, a gesture simple yet imbued with warmth and familiarity. He win. We'll figure this out together. You have to believe that. As the sirens wailed closer, a new realization began to bloom within me. My voice could be as potent as my fears. I felt my throat tighten at my next thought, one I had been avoiding. Do we have allies? I asked, looking into their eyes, searching for signs that we weren't as alone as I felt. There are others, Isabella. People who care about you. My father replied, a fierce determination lighting within him. We will gather support. You won't face this alone. But a nagging doubt played at the edges of my resolve. What if those allies didn't arrive in time? What if Leo was already plotting his revenge? Wait, what if Leo is suddenly? A loud bang echoed from outside, shaking the very walls of our sanctuary, cutting my thoughts short. My heart thudded violently against my chest. I exchanged panicked glances with my father and Victor, an unspoken agreement leaping between us. We have to move, I said, urgency flooding my voice again. Now. As Victor moved to guide me off the gurney where I had been laid, my mind whirred with tenacious focus. I had come too far to give in now. The rear door creaked as we made our way through the dimly lit corridor, the weight of uncertainty lingering on my shoulders. Each step reverberated with the promise of the unknown ahead. My heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. Isabella. A voice called from outside, cutting through the chaos and my shaking thoughts, an all-too-familiar voice that stole the breath from my lungs. Now the adrenaline surged anew, my body propelling me forward even as my heart quaked in fear. Would I encounter Leo? Would I face the darkness again? I took a deep breath, steeling myself, knowing that whatever awaited me on the other side could either be my salvation or my undoing. Unbeknownst to me, I was stepping straight into the jaws of a deeper betrayal. The chill of realization wrapped around me like an unwelcome cloak. I hesitated at the exit, my pulse quickening as desperation festered within my chest. Just a step away was a threshold into the storm, but the voice calling my name was both a beacon and a siren. Was it truly the way forward, or something deeper that sought to drag me back to the past? Isabella. My breath hitched as Leo's voice cut through the haze. Stumbling out into the dim hallway, I felt my father's reassuring grip tighten around my arm, grounding me even as fear clanged in my mind. Stay behind me, he cautioned, merging protectiveness with an urgency that churned my thoughts. Why are you doing this? I called out, my voice a mixture of anger and confusion, thoughts surrounding the path ahead twisting and colliding painfully. With each word, I felt the invisible thread binding me to Leo tighten, puppeteering the turmoil that refused to fade. You know why. Leo stepped into the dim light, a sinister smirk dancing across his lips that sent a shudder down my spine. This isn't over, Isabella. You can't just walk away from what we've built together. What we built. I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow in the air. Do you think I haven't realized the truth? Each moment here with him felt like a rehearse, like I had been wandering step for step in someone else's nightmare. You took everything I cared about and threw it away for power and greed. I wanted to scream, to send that truth spiraling into the night with the wind. Everything I did was for us, he insisted, his jaw tightening, but I saw through his facade, the polished confidence now marred by uncertainty, revealing the boy I once loved now twisted by ambition. You were always meant for more than this small life. I showed you the way, you were supposed to join me, not run away, he pleaded as if reasoning with a scared child rather than a woman who had endured more than her fair share of hardship. Isabella, behind you. Thomas's warning jolted me, and in an instant, I shifted my instincts screaming for me to protect what remained of myself. I ducked just as a dark shadow lunged from behind, and chaos erupted once more. The air thickened with tension as momentum blurred the space between us, and the forces colliding felt like a tempest one I was at the center of. With every ounce of strength I summoned, I turned, ready to confront the threat that bubbled at the corners of my reality. But there was no enemy bolting through the door, no physical presence tearing at the seams of my life. Instead, it was the raw, unfiltered connection to my father staring back at me, unwavering and steady, filled with a lifetime of unspoken words. I was wrong to leave, he said softly, breaking through an invisible wall that had been holding me back for far too long. But I came back because I need to protect you. You don't know what they want, what he wants. I don't need your protection. My voice cracked, fury and hurt bleeding into the echoes. Yet, with that sharp pang, I felt the tightness of love and longing mixing together in a symphony that cut deeper than any wound. You don't know what I've seen, what I've survived without you. But with those words swirling in the air, I found myself staring into my father's tired eyes reflecting back my own pain, teasing the layers of sorrow that coiled around us. The realization struck hard, a thunder to the heart. As much as I loathed him for his abandonment, fear still anchored me to him, the only connection to protections I had craved, and then, as if noticing my shift in focus, Leo stepped back, detection hanging heavy on his shoulders like a sheet drenched in rain. With malice, he spoke, "You think he can save you? From me?" He raised his hands, as if we stood in an arena, two sides of a coin, anger on one, anguish on the other. All he will do is expose you to more pain, more betrayal. Stop it. Enough was enough. I had been torn between vengeful ties and desperate love for far too long, and here it was, staring me down, the moment of truth. Do you hear yourself? I stood firm, ready to assert my presence, fueled by courage. You've brought nothing but darkness into my life while holding on to the illusion of power. That's never been strength, Leo. That's fear. I felt a moment of stillness settle, like a pause before a storm breached the horizon, almost as if I had turned a key in a lock on something uncharted. In that silence, I felt the heaviness of shame wrap around Leo, the flicker of realization igniting behind his eyes. It was there that I understood I could speak to my fear, but I could also speak to his torment. What you don't understand, I said, shaping the conviction in my voice carefully, is that power is not a weapon, it's love, and I am done allowing you to manipulate the fabric of mine. His smirk faltered, replaced by a glimmer of recognition mixed with disbelief. Was it truly possible that Leo, the boy I had thought I knew, had been lost to darkness so long that he didn't realize the light still existed? But I had no time to ponder now, my heart pounding anew. Come on. Victor urged, urgency lining his tone. I looked past Leo, knowing our time to stand still was coming to an end. And in that clutter of loud voices and rapid heartbeats, an aching truth roared loud above the chaos: I was not alone anymore. My father stood beside me, and Thomas held steady on another side. I could face the darkness before me, but it required stepping fully into the uncharted waters that thrived on authenticity. The sirens wailed closer, seeping into the edges of my consciousness. Leo's deception was breaking apart at the seams. No! He shouted, panic flaring in his eyes as the weight of our choices chipped away at his bravado. Suddenly, I turned away from him, following Victor's lead. You think you can control this? I shouted back, urgency clinging to my voice. I will break free of your shadow, of your lies. And just like that, I stepped forward into the hardened reality of the unknown, where love and its shadows twisted together in a dance of duality and reflection, finally willing to embrace the possibility of healing. As I raced down the hallway into the storm, a gunshot rang out, shattering the air like glass. I felt the world tilt, swirling between dimensions of life and death, and I couldn't tell what lay ahead. But right then, made whole by the presence of my brother and my father, I pushed through the tempest, propelled not by fear but by an indomitable will to reclaim what had been stolen: my heart, my voice, and the remnants of a life that awaited me just beyond the darkness. My world was a fragile echo, but one thing was certain: this journey had just begun. And through it all, I still believed that love would always find a way even amid thrashing storms, because in the end, facing fear was the greatest power of all. Isabella. My name echoed faintly, dulled by chaos, but amidst the fading storm, I felt something anew, a glimmer of trust. And perhaps love could heal the deepest scars after all. Only time would reveal the truth of what lay ahead. The promise kept hung in the air like the flicker of a distant star. Despite everything, my heart murmured the most vital lesson of all: I was no longer alone, and this storm was but a chapter, not the end. And from the abyss of that moment, I chased after the light, recognizing my story belonged to me and no one else. Each step forward became a crescendo, echoing possibilities that would shape me into the person I was meant to become. It was time for me to rise.